Hello guys, you're welcome back. In our previous lesson we looked at how to insert comments on our page. So in this lesson we're going to learn the different data types we have in PHP. So PHP is a dynamically typed programming language, meaning that you don't need to specify the type of data that you have. PHP will automatically figure out the type of data that you have and also the kind of command or the kind of instructions that can be executed on that type. So first of all, we need to know the different types of the different data types we have in PHP. So let me write that here as a comment. Why PHP? So the first type of data we have in PHP is we have, let's say we have string. We have also data type called integer. We also have long. We have double, etc. Then we also have Boolean. We have array. So these are some of the basic data types we have in PHP. So we'll go over each of them one after the other. So let me create a variable here called string name John Doe, for example. So this is a string. A string is a kind of data type that can hold combination of letters and text together, and a string is usually begins with a quotation mark here. You can see opening quotes and closing quotes here. So everything within here is considered a string. And this $sign here, you see here, and is how to define a variable within PHP. So $sign name is assigned the name of the variable, which is name. So a string can hold values like name, text like name, addresses, phone numbers, etc. Now let me echo that particular string. So echo name and save. When you load, see that John Doe will be displayed on the screen. If you do not put the quotation mark, you're going to encounter an error, because with string you must wrap it with quotation mark, either single quotes or double quotes. They all do the same thing. So, and also, if another data type that we have is, let's say age, for example, is an integer. So let's say the age here is 22, for example. Okay, and then when I say echo age, and then let me comment out this line of code here. When I say echo age, you're going to show 22 onto the screen. Now notice that with an integer we do not need to put a quotation mark in between. So if I put the quotation mark in between, it will be treated as a string and it still displays on the screen. Now with PHP you can check if you can use a instruction called var_dump to display the type and the value of a particular variable. So let's say var_dump age. So when you say var dump age, let's move here. So it's going to display that this is a string with 2 characters, and what is the string? 22 here. So this is a string. Now if I remove the quotation mark in between, guess what? It is now treated as an integer. So var dump will now give me that I have an integer, which is short int, which is short form for integer, an integer with a value of what? 22. Okay, so with PHP you can display, you can have both string and integer in PHP. Then also, let's see, you know that with a string you cannot do addition and subtraction with a string, but let's try doing that. Let's say age plus equal to 8 plus equal to 1, then echo age, echo age. Okay, so let me remove this var dump, get rid of this. So what I'm doing is that I define a variable called age and assign it a value of 22 with this equal to sign, and then I incremented the age by 1 by saying age plus equal to 1. So one thing about PHP is that you can have what we call self-assignments. So self-assignment is that already I have a variable called age defined. So when I say plus equal to, I'm incrementing the age by 1. So what I'm expected to get here is 23 because I've incremented it by 1. So with an integer you can do operations like plus, minus, etc. Okay, so let me say minus equal to 1. Of course I'm going to get 21 on the screen now. Or let me say times equal to 1 or times equal to 2. I'm going to get 44 because I'm saying whatever value here, I'm timesing it by 2, so I'm to get 44 here. So with a particular data type, we also determine the kind of operation you can perform on it. So with an integer, you can perform mathematical operations like times, plus, divide, etc. Now, what if we try to perform these operations onto a string? So let me put quotation mark in between this age. Now that will give me a string because of this quotation mark I have here. That means that the data type here is a string. So when I reload, I still get 44. How come is mathematical calculation performed onto a string? We all know that you cannot perform mathematical calculations onto a string. Okay, now the reason is because PHP is doing what is called typecasting. So PHP, by virtue of attempting to perform mathematical calculations onto a string, PHP will automatically convert the data type into an integer that can support that kind of calculation. So calculation can only be done on an integer. So PHP will now convert this text into an integer. So to show whether this is actually an integer, instead of echo, I'm going to say var dump age. Okay, so when I reload the page, I'm going to say that this is an integer and the value is 44. Now, how did it turn to an integer? It became an integer at the point when we attempted to perform mathematical calculation on that string. So PHP automatically did what is called typecasting. So this is what we call implicit typecasting, when PHP does it automatically for you. So it's called implicit typecasting. Typecasting is conversion from one type of data to another, so from string to an integer, so that it can support calculations. Now you can also have a boolean here. You can also have a boolean. We are done with this string and integer. Let's also deal with a float. Let's say we have a value like height, or let's say amount. Let's say the amount is 2200.5, for example. Now this is a float. Let's say var_dump amount. So let's see the type of data we have. So this is a float. A float is simply a decimal number. So you can see a decimal point here. So a float is also referred to as a decimal number. Now you can also have a long number, that is a number that is beyond a certain length. So let's say you have 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Let's say you have 1 billion here. So guess what is this? Let's see the type of data we have. It is what? An integer. Okay, let's say we have 100 billion, for example, which is 11 digits. So you still have an integer. Let's say you have 900 billion. You still have an integer. Let's say you have 9 trillion. You still have an integer. Okay, let me increase the length of this text to a certain amount. Then okay, you now have a float. So if a float number is a number that has exceeded the range of an integer. Okay, there's a certain range of length of that an integer can support. So if you have anything beyond that, you have what? A float number. Okay, so you can also have a boolean. Okay, let's say you have a boolean. A boolean value is a type of data that only accepts either true or false. So let's say is tall equal to true. Okay, now let's echo. Let's say var_dump is tall. var_dump is tall. So it's going to show you that is a boolean value, and the value you have here is true. Then you can also have false here. So this is a boolean and the value is false. But if I put quotation mark in between, guess what? Is it a string or a boolean? You guessed right. The answer is what? A string, because of the quotation mark in between. So this is how to use a boolean. With the boolean, you can also use the negative. You can invert a boolean. Let's say if a boolean was originally true, you can negate it by using exclamation mark in front of it. So this will now evaluate to what? You can say exclamation mark equal to is tall. Okay, so to change this to false, to change it to true, you can actually assign it to what? To true. So it will now, the value will now change to what? To true. Okay, so that's how to change Boolean from true to false. So you can have true or false in a Boolean data. Now we also have another special kind of data called an array. So an array is a data type that can hold multiple values in it. So let's assume that you have an array of things like an array of fruits. Inside your array of fruits, you can have orange, pineapple, mango, etc. So let's create that array of fruits. Let's say fruits. So to define an array, you can say equal to, then you use the array function. You say array, then you put your put a square bracket here and say it orange, mango, then say grape, then say apple, for example. Okay, let's say we have these elements in the array. When we reload, we see nothing because we are not rendering it. So to access the element in an array, you can say, okay, first of all, let's see the data type. Let's say var_dump fruits, var_dump fruits, and reload. You're going to see that you have an array, and this is showing you the element in the array. Now there's something called array index. Array index is the number that shows the position of each item in an array. So PHP begins, the first element in an array has an array index of 0. The second element has an array index of 1, 2, and 3. So this array has 4 elements. The last element has an array index of 3, and the first element has an array index of 0. So to access elements in this array, you're going to say, let's say echo, and then say fruits, and then you put square brackets, and then you type the index of that particular item in the array. Let's say I want to get this grape, for example. Grape is at what array index? Yes, you got it right. It's at an array index of 2. So let's type 2 here. Of course, we should get grape displayed. Okay, I have an error. So what does it say? It said undefined array key 2 on line 21. Okay, so let's say 2 here. Array key fruits 2. Okay, let me